Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining in. Oh, getting real, authenticity, A Course in Miracles. Initially I thought, how could those things be related? I've been looking at the Course for quite some time and, always sort of viewed it as this transcendental, um, spiritual, you know, Kirk to Enterprise, one to beam up, like get me out of this world kind of teaching and process and it actually isn't at all. Well, the end goal is a completely different experience of reality. The pathway to that is the exact opposite thing that most spiritually minded people want to do, which is get really authentic and real with their thoughts and feelings. Now, that doesn't mean going around and telling everyone all your thoughts and feelings, right? Because that's what I thought getting real meant. But it does. And and that's a part of it. That's what a holy relationship is a place where that's possible. But initially, it's about getting real with ourselves and with God. And the lesson I was working on today is my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And like, well, that's a fun thought to think. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Like, yeah, I could walk around thinking that all day and get kind of spiritually high and spiritually buzzed off that. And that's not quite how a course works. The course talks about uncovering the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So, for that particular lesson, it was to acknowledge all the ways we see ourselves. I see myself as powerful. I see myself as weak. I see myself as depressed. I see myself as happy. To literally go through all the different sets of identities um, during the practice periods, but also throughout the day. And it was an amazing day for me to recognize, like, I see myself as like a total loser, and I see myself as a total badass. And moment by moment, our sense of identity can really shift radically. But to really get authentic about all the it's like it's kind of a funny thing to say, but in some ways, the Course in Miracles is about the ego getting authentic. Because underneath it all, the Course very clearly says that not only is the ego completely insane, but underneath these little upsets we have, the Course says there's like a smoldering, explosive rage that we do all these things to keep below the surface. And so, um, as I oftentimes think of it, the ego is a homicidal, suicidal sadomasochist, that we just do all these things to try and keep it under wraps, or it, more accurately, it tries to keep that under the wraps. And I had a little breakthrough today. I've been really working the course pretty vigorously, and really, and part of what we're doing initially is creating the container so that we feel safe enough. Because that's why the ego stays hidden, is it doesn't feel safe. And then, as we create this, I mean, I'm using sort of psychological terms, but as we literally, well, not literally, but metaphorically, we create this container that can handle the ego, then it starts, then that homicidal, suicidal, sadomasochist world destroyer starts to show itself a little bit, you know? And so today I had quite the breakthrough. I'm here in New Zealand and I was reading, I was at this tourist attraction and it talked about Captain Captain Cook, who discovered New Zealand, um, more like introduced New Zealand to the Western world, but that's a that's a political discussion. We'll save that for later. But so I obviously I obviously have feelings about I have feelings about thoughts and feelings about Western countries discovering, these places where people lived in harmony with nature, like here in New Zealand, and of course, the country I was born in the USA, so in the United States, you know, um, and here in New Zealand, it was much less vicious. What was my understanding is anyway, what was done to the native people as opposed to in the country I hail from. But yeah, so it's a topic I have some feelings on, and so I read about Captain Cook is coming here, and then it talked about how he made all these journeys, and then it talks about how then he was killed in Hawaii, and then I heard this little voice go, "Good, got what he deserved." I was like, "Whoa, whoa!" And if I hadn't had the course, I might be like, "Oh my God, I'm a sick person," or I would have done one of two things. I would have been like, "Oh my God, I'm a sick, twisted person," or I've been like, "Yeah, he deserved to be killed." I would have like identified with that thought, um, which is kind of what we do. What How the ego responds to itself is it steps into that justification of like, yes, violence, attack is justified, or it guilts itself for it attacks itself for valuing attack. Oh, the ego. Um, so, but I had the course, so I was just like, oh, oh, that's what the ego looks like. It celebrates death and murder, and it's into punishment. Like, okay, this guy, you know, ha- harmed. I don't even know anything about New Zealand history, but it's like, okay, this guy harmed these native people, so he deserves to have, been killed by other native people. He got what was coming to him. That's the story anyway. And so I just recognized it and just offered it up to Holy Spirit, and you know come into the recognition that no one deserves punishment. And that's um, and that oh, I have a little backlog here to look at around these stories of these histories of modern people coming in and interfering with native people. So that's what, and that's just the tip on the iceberg of how vicious, vicious and cruel and mean the ego is. So, so I had a breakthrough today. The inner murderer, my inner murderer, really just the ego, joking around, of course, but it felt safe enough to sort of let itself be seen, and I was luckily present enough to catch it and not take it on. And yeah, the course is a bit of a paradox in that way. Is on the surface, the Course in Miracles looks like the ultimate spiritual bypass, right? And for years, that's what I thought it was. But actually, it's the exact opposite. It's about uncovering that which the ego is trying to keep hidden and bringing it to the light. It's not about just going right to the light, because that's dumb. Sorry, I mean, it's not dumb, but from the Course's perspective, like, that's dumb. We are the light. We don't need to go to the light. That's like a billionaire being like, I need to go make some money. I'm sorry. When I say it's dumb, I'm making fun of myself, not anyone else, because I spent so many years being what they call a light chaser, a spiritual bypasser. And yeah, it's dumb in the sense that like it doesn't work. Not dumb, like it's harmful. And then I kept doing it over and over because it's pretty addictive. It becomes addictive. So So yeah, on the surface, the course really looks like one more spiritual bypass, and it's actually the exact opposite. It's about getting really, really real, which is what the ego doesn't want to do, which is why I think a lot of people, I sure did this for a long time, get onto the spiritual path, and then it's like we just go right for bypass city, right for let's just transcend all this shit, right, and get to eternal peace. And just doesn't work because we because it's kind of like lying to get to the truth, you know, like. And I love that. It's so funny. The lighting for this video is really. I just was so excited. I didn't even think to turn on the lighting, and like the sun is setting right now. Um, but I kind of like it because this is kind of, because we're gonna we don't go into the shadow to become it. We don't go into the shadow to glorify it, but we go in to uncover it. It's not like we go in, but we uncover. We uncover what's hidden. And so I wish you all a great journey. I'm really, really fired up about the course, and I'm really fired up about this process of being really authentic. And because only when we uncover can then we offer it over to the Holy Spirit. So this is a very shady. This is a very shady truth broadcasting from within the shadows. I'm wishing you all good excavation, good archaeology, good uncovering. Take care, dear ones. Much love.